We are here live. You're listening to WZRD Chicago, 88.3 FM. Again, hope everybody is doing well, having a good afternoon, day, yada, yada, all that. We are here with Chicago photographer Salman Zubairi. Salman, introduce yourself a bit, my man.
Hey, this is Salman Zubairi. I'm a Chicago photographer, also a photojournalist. You've seen me probably around in the protests in Chicago, or probably at like a wedding or something like that. I do photography of all kinds, and my services are offered to clients all around the Chicagoland, Midwest, and all over the U.S. And I actually graduated from the University of Illinois at Chicago, and I hold a bachelor's in information sciences. That is something that I do as like my full time and whatnot, but that has its own perks and detriments that we'll sort of like branch out and more into later for sure. But that is a small introduction about myself.
Nice, dude. Well, welcome to the Wizard. Glad to have you here, man. You said something up top that is interesting to me. You say that you work like a full-time job outside of photography.
Yes.
What is that balance like?
So the balance is actually pretty weird, and I'm gonna be like really honest. Like I actually quit it yesterday because it was a contract-based job, and the way these corporate companies work, it's really kind of messed up. And they kind of just try to take advantage of the individual as much as possible, and they don't really care like what your balance is like or what you might have going on, but they would just try to like vampire in your life. Basically, that's what they try to do. And they had me on this contract, and I was sort of kind of briefing my Instagram handle and my TikTok and stuff like that as well about this issue where they sort of was offering me like a 6-month contract and an extension first off, but they actually just kind of reduced it to like a 3-month contract after I made a LinkedIn post about them, because they were sort of delaying the start date 1 month after the other. And apparently that kind of led me into like a crisis, because obviously I have to support my family and stuff, and this is my bread and butter for the most part. And that led me to basically waking up in a sense of insecurity every single day. And basically I sort of kind of vented that out, and I waited a long time, to be fair, but eventually I had to take to my platform. I went to LinkedIn and kind of talked about them and stuff, and the next day I had the director of talent acquisition from both companies like sort of calling me, and kind of, because the LinkedIn post went viral, and it sort of kind of unmasks the real faces of these corporate companies, where they're just trying to take advantage of people. And when it's kind of unmasked to the whole world, like they just go into a frenzy. They had internal talks with their companies and whatnot, and they try to mitigate the situation as much as possible. But then they try to get me into the the work sort of cycle again. And even though they might have policies for no retribution and stuff, they just gave me such an extreme and difficult experience that I was just forced to quit for my own sanity, basically.
Sure. And that just speaks so much to like what I'm sure a lot of artists experience, is like trying to find some balance, right? And it's like
Absolutely.
Only the lucky few are able to find like a space or a job that gives them that flexibility. But the second you critique them publicly, which should be your right as a person, expressing freedom of speech and all this stuff, talking about how terrible it is to work in these conditions, they punish you for it.
Absolutely.
And it's a shame, because I'm sure your end goal is to like try to do art full time, right?
Yeah, for sure. Like my end goal is to do full time, and obviously I have invested in my career getting these, technical certifications and whatnot within the South Asian community, which I hail from. These IT sort of technical certifications are this like one gateway to like basically, getting a certain amount of income sort of situated for you and your family, and having your goals met and stuff like that. I sort of have done podcasts and these interactions with a lot of immigrants within my community who come in and who are looking for work and whatnot, and sometimes these certifications really level them up to basically get these good jobs and have like a long-lasting career. But it really depends on the company. Some of the worst experiences I've had are with like really big corporate companies, and they just are really inflammatory when it comes to their rhetoric, when a person wants to like let go of them and whatnot, and at the end of the day, you have to choose between yourself and these corporate companies and what they're trying to put in your mind and whatnot. They might even try to gaslight you or say so many things about your own skills and whatnot that might not be true. And it's especially frustrating for immigrants who come in and back in our lands and stuff like that. The job opportunities in certain spaces are so scarce that when we're coming to the United States and we're actually investing into ourselves, getting these certifications, and after the job market has been so terrible, finally getting something, and at the end of the day just having to let go of that just because you have to choose your own sanity, it gets really frustrating. And obviously this is a full-time thing for a lot of people, and it is for me as well. But to be honest, now I have to do an internal talk with myself every time I'm applying or having interview with these companies, and really look into who they are. Before this, I wouldn't be just looking into who they are and what their mission is. I would just take anything, right? Because the job market is so bad. But now I'm definitely going to start to do that.
Definitely.
For sure.
And you're speaking to such a critical thing and very appropriate for the times being, right? Like the way that American labor markets will take an immigrant person or a population of immigrants who have so much to lose, and they will force them into these conditions because they assume there's this implicit reasoning that you, like you're saying, you have to do with yourself, where based on your life conditions, you may sacrifice happiness or comfort or something like that just to have a job. And these companies know that, and they exploit that. Then they exploit you. And then the second you try to better your conditions in any way, they punish you, and they remove your ability for autonomy and decision making, and it's just kind of a shame what you're speaking to, man.
Absolutely. And it's such a difficult sort of experience hearing about the idea of an American dream. And even when we were living in our countries, I remember being in Pakistan when I was 6-7 years old, or when I was 11-13 years old, and always really having this good sort of kind of idea of the United States, that I would go there and have all this opportunity and stuff like that. And I always wanted to go into pre-medicine, and because my parents were into that sort of thing, so I wanted to just have that sort of career for myself and really serve the people of the United States. But when I got here, and when I was sort of enrolled in the University of Illinois in Chicago, I was doing my pre-medicine classes in the first couple semesters, and then I realized how the capitalist healthcare system works and how it just preys onto people like crazy. And sometimes you don't even need certain procedures and stuff like that, but just to make money, these corporations will instruct these doctors, basically train them on sales and stuff like that, and how they will have to get these unnecessary procedures done just so these insurance companies can make more money. And it's absolutely exploiting these people. And in some way or form, American dream just exists as an illusion. It's not really true. Once the bubble is burst, you see it for what it really is. And as we talk about exploitation of labor and whatnot, and this current situation of ICE trying to deport all these migrants and stuff like that, I know for sure, in my area and a lot of these areas of Chicagoland, huge chunk of restaurants, employ these migrants for really cheap rates and for really low, per hour sort of commitments and whatnot. And they are really exploit these people and whatnot, and now when it comes to the ICE, coming into their businesses and whatnot and trying to take these people away, then those businesses are not standing up for these people and not really doing anything to kind of safeguard the people that have been working for them and that have been putting 11-12 hours. Because if we do 8-hour days in our full-time jobs and whatnot, we have these things protecting us and whatnot, these laws protecting us. But these migrants who are working in these unfair conditions and these unfair commitments have to put in 15 hours of work, and there is no accountability over it.
Absolutely. You're speaking to the way, again, that's another implicit thing that these institutions, or even on a personal individual basis, somebody who owns a small restaurant banks on the fact that the migrant that they're hiring knows the conditions they're living within and will force them to work as much as possible because they know they've got nothing they can do. And it's a fascinating idea, right? You will get these laborers in. That's what America's built on, right? Is at first chattel slavery labor, and then over time it was the Chinese population was brought here to do labor. They were paid very little. They were then extradited and brought back. And then now it's like this tech cycle that's again like exploiting Asian labor of all sources. So you're saying like Southeast population and all these groups that are being exploited over time. And it's just to export labor to make it cheaper and then bring it back home, right? So that was their goal, and they got that. And they were able to do that. And so now they had cheap labor. This country's been founded on cheap, exploited labor. Even the American whites that exist here are also cheap and exploited. But then on the inverse side, right, like they're getting rid of these laborers. Are these restaurant owners and businesses going to raise their wages to pay the people here in America? No, it's just going to screw the economy even further, And then ultimately, these people are like pitted against each other too. We're not fighting a class war, we're fighting a culture war. Mm-hmm. People are then put against one another. I've heard so many times people within this state, specifically after all of these migrants have been sent here, maybe from like Texas or anywhere in the South, it becomes a diametric opposition, like the poor people of this state who are, American citizens hate the migrants because of the opportunity some of these migrants have been given. Maybe if they were given like some cash stipends or a home or food and this and that. And when in reality, like you're saying, it's a systemic problem that should be fought at from the system. Like we should all turn our guns to the system and try to break the system down in some way. But like you're saying, it's kind of a hard thing. We're all so busy just trying to find happiness and fulfillment and put enough food on the table for our family and send some money back to, your family at home and stuff like that. And it's an awful situation we're in, man. And you're speaking to like a really appropriate thing right now. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you have to really find this balance between like, okay, you're trying to provide happiness and fulfillment for yourself and your family. And obviously you live in a community as well. You have an obligation to your community as well. And you have to serve it in some way or form. And when you see such a big chunk of people going through, such a devastating problem, you have to do at least like the bare minimum in order to safeguard them and whatnot. It's a really difficult situation that we're living in, and it's been like this within the Biden government sort of funding genocide and whatnot, and now the Trump government coming in and having this hateful rhetoric towards immigrants and whatnot. And like the thing is, it's a culture war, as you said, but the biggest thing is actually waking up to people that are kind of trying to fool you into propaganda and whatnot and trying to get these votes and whatnot. Trump kind of got the Muslim vote in Michigan, by sort of like going to these communities and sort of telling them that, we're going to stop the war in Gaza and, you should vote for me and stuff like that. And he kind of built it up in a way where these people believed him and they voted for him. And he was supposed to have an imam and a Muslim representation in his inauguration as well. He removed that before even getting inaugurated, and he kind of turned on to Gaza, and now he wants these Arab countries around Palestine to accept the Palestinian population and just get rid of them all because he thinks Gaza is a wasteland. Well, who made it a wasteland in the first place? The previous government is funding genocide, and he's cutting out all the foreign aid to all these countries and stuff like that. But why not Israel? So that is another thing that is going on in the community and going on in the world basically, and nobody's talking about it and stuff like that. A lot of the efforts that were sort of really prominent within the last few months with the protests, with the efforts to make people aware, they have kind of staggered as well. And now when TikTok was shut down, it's not been the same since it was shut down, because now it got reactivated and whatnot. They had the whole President Trump thing when it got reactivated. So it's all like fueling Trump's propaganda. He knows it's a propaganda war, and he knows that he has to stay in the limelight and stay in the positive limelight, because Biden, he did not crack down on that as much as Trump is doing. And that's why these apps, when they're coming back into the air, they're praising him, and secretly they're censoring sort of these voices which are standing up for people, which are kind of making sure that there's accountability where Israel is committing these genocidal crimes and whatnot. And now it's slowly getting heavily censored again, even on TikTok, which was a platform for alternative news and stuff like that. But I think we still have to keep going. We still have to keep pushing as a community, because before we found alternative ways to rise up, we still have to find these ways to rise up and stand and hold ourselves together as a community. This migrant crisis that is happening, and the problems that have been kind of pushed towards this entire community, we have to stand together with them. We have to stand together with the Palestinians Palestinian community in the Chicagoland and all over the United States as well as all over the world. I had the opportunity last year of going to Amsterdam and England, and it's kind of like documenting the Palestinian protests out there and whatnot, and people of all kinds, all backgrounds that are standing up for justice wherever it may be. So we have to keep that thing in mind, that you have to do your part. There's people all over the world doing their part, making effort in some way or the other. Where are you? What are you doing that is different from all these other people who are staying silent?
Absolutely, dude. That's beautifully said. 100%. It is a community effort and needs to be something that is shown solidarity, and kind of like to pivot towards your art and things like this. There are these alternative ways, right? If we're fighting propaganda, there needs to be alternative sources for information, for documentation, and things like that. And that's kind of like how I've found you, is like through your Instagram, and you were covering some protests and stuff like that. And in order to combat these narratives that exist, right, we need to find a way to reposition narratives, to take away that dominance from like, imperial American Western narratives where it's like they're the good guy, everybody else is the bad guy. Our wars are justified, our colonization is justified, and stuff like that. Talk to me a little bit about how you see photojournalism and documenting struggle important in all of this.
Photojournalism and documentation is so important in today's age, when we're living in this age where the camera phones, everybody has a camera in their phones nowadays. Everybody could document any sort of brutality or injustice that they see around them, and you just have to platform it on the internet. The algorithm will find it some way or the other, and it will sort of be raised to the world. There will be a lot of eyes seeing it, and your job there will be done. But as a part of being like a photojournalist, or sort of trying to uphold these ideals of doing something for the community and whatnot, I've had the brilliant opportunity and actually the honor of having my people be out in the streets and stuff like that, and documenting their voices, documenting their chants in a different language, documenting the people that are getting pushed around, and a lot of this police brutality that had been going on with the Palestinian protesters and stuff like that. My camera got broken, was shoved down by a Chicago police officer, where I was covering someone, a hijabi, this woman, where she was protesting and she was chanting against these police officers who were trying to clear the street, and they were trying to like push her around and stuff like that, and I wasn't gonna let this happen. Like, it's a person of my community, and they're getting like a huge sort of injustice done against them, and I'm obviously trying to cover that and whatnot, and this police officer comes and shoves my camera down. I had like a whole case with the Chicago Police Department, COPA, their accountability departments and whatnot, and at the end of the day, whose side that they took? It was the police officers. So these systems exist against us, where they're trying to sort of always commit injustice against us, and that can be sometimes a sort of that can sometimes discourage you from pursuing photojournalism or from documenting certain things, but you should not back down. Like, there is always a better a situation, a benefit that some other people could benefit from your documentation. Sometimes you just you don't have to think about yourself and your own like personal loss at that time, but it's something that you're doing for the community. It's for the greater good of the community, and that's what I saw it as. Even though that was like a personal loss that might have disadvantaged me in certain ways, but my community sort of showed up. They sent in hundreds and hundreds of complaints and stuff like that, and then they started to like lodge all these complaints on the COPA website and whatnot. But at the end of the day, it all got grouped until under like one complaint, and it was shut down. So unfortunately, that happened. But apart from that, it has been a brilliant like sort of effort covering these protests and stuff like that, and taking my own creative angle on them, whether it's like sort of producing captions. Like, it's not just covering these things on the street, it's a huge process of editing them later on as well, because there's color grading that happens, and I try to take like a new angle with color grading every protest that I'm going on. Sometimes like people can tell it from my style, like this is what Salman filmed, but this is something that might look different from like a protest in January versus like a protest in December and whatnot. And it's just been a huge honor basically covering this, and sort of being there with the community. And I've had these like like crazy drone shots where, you can see like the entire Michigan Avenue full of people and with like big Palestinian flags and stuff like that. So, and people of all colors, all backgrounds have showed up and really stood together for our community. And at least that's the bare minimum that we have as a community in Chicago when people are in so much pain with their, devastating conditions, because say you have some relatives or your father or mother even, in Palestine and, they have these injustices being committed against them every single day. The only thing sometimes you can do is like when you have a community around you, they can support you and they can have these cultural things like when the student encampments were going on at different universities and stuff like that, they had dubki performances there. They had a lot of these cultural sort of elements present there, which sometimes kind of like it changes your heart a little bit, from it just kind of like shifts your heart from all the pain. And sometimes when there's communal happiness, you sort of partake in it, and all the pain in the world kind of dims down for a little bit, if that makes sense. So even documenting the encampments and stuff like that was such a amazing thing for me. I had an opportunity to document the London School of Economics encampment. It was one of the longest standing encampments. So many people got arrested out there too, their entire career shut down. I didn't do anything to sacrifice a little bit of like my camera and stuff like that. People sacrificed their entire careers, man, and the people had such big dreams of becoming this and that, and they got arrested out there, and the Zionist lobby is so strong out there, they made sure that these people never get like an opportunity again, but they're still pushing, within this war against the capitalist machine, against the war machine, against all these forces that exist, we're always going to be pushing and staying together as a community and holding and safeguarding ourselves.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely. Again, beautifully said, man. In regards to all of that, right, you're saying you personally and the people who are actually doing it at that time, they have the ability and the gift to experience this communal effort, right? Your documentation is something that kind of it works as a facsimile for people who don't get to participate. How do you see that? What is the importance of showing that to people? Like not just experiencing, but what do you think that does for people? How do you think it galvanizes them if you think that?
So it creates a lot of awareness when people even see, like, even from like, a very basic standpoint, when people see that they're having fun in something, like psychologically, you kind of get attracted to that, like, what is this performance going on that a lot of people are participating in? Let me check it out, right? And then say a person, a bystander who doesn't know anything about this, kind of like gets attracted into the basic psychology of that video or, whatever fun the people are doing. Slowly their mind starts to shift and, kind of get curious about the entire narrative, like why they're doing, who is their, what is this culture, like what is this thing where people are having fun and maybe how can I be a part of it and whatnot, so they kind of get curious about that, and through these videos, through these narratives and whatnot, their mind slowly starts to open up. And I can see a lot of people from the start of the movement who did not agree with a lot of the things, or maybe not even agree, they did not have their minds open up to certain narratives and certain things where the narratives exist just to safeguard the existence of for someone. It's not even like a complex issue. It's just the issue of humanity and whatnot, And so it was so frustrating at first when I saw like a lot of my colleagues and stuff like that who were just really silent. And a lot of people try to silence me. A lot of my friends try to silence me. Like, what are you doing going out there and like documenting these people? This is gonna do nothing. This protest stuff is gonna do nothing. This boycott stuff is gonna do nothing. But eventually in the long term, it showed how it can create awareness for a lot of the people. Sometimes these actions, people get annoyed by it, that happen in Chicago where people are blocking streets and stuff like that. But how else are you going to get people to listen? It's through these actions. And when these actions get documented and put on the internet, sometimes it really enrages people and whatnot, but this is an issue that you should be enraged on, something where your humanity has been so cut off by these corporate war machines. Sometimes someone has to make a communal effort to bring you back to your reality, And if you're not gonna listen, we're gonna make you listen. This is what it is, because it's not just any other issue. It's the issue of humanity. People are dying, our brothers and sisters are dying, and we're not gonna just sit here and just watch this unfold and do nothing. You have to do something. And when you're documenting these, they see these narratives, they see these videos, and they eventually open up and sort of come into our community, check it out, and have their minds open up, and eventually become a part of the community. And some people on the inverse, they do not. They still keep hating, but they do a lot of efforts in the hatred as well. I have so many hate comments coming in, so many messages from really pro-Zionist movements who try to shut me down and whatnot. You'll always have people on the inverse end as well, but it's really important for us to keep going and keep documenting to the people. Now it has thanks to the movements and all these people even making simple TikTok videos, on the Palestinian movement and whatnot, it grew so much that from the streets of Pakistan to the streets of Indonesia to the islands of Japan, this issue has been, kind of basically directed everywhere in the world. And, now so many people know about it and stuff like that. So many people have awareness around it and whatnot. Even when I was in Japan, when the October 7th stuff happened, I was in Japan around October of 2023. So, people even started to hold themselves as a community and kind of, protest against this, even out there where, a lot of the things were just starting up, So it really goes to show that if you're documenting and if you're raising your voice, it could be a simple person, you don't have to worry about what that TikTok video is going to look like. Just go and speak your mind and post it, Some person, is going to find truth from it, and some person is going to have their mind changed from it. You don't know how it works, the algorithm, stuff like that, who it could reach to, but as long as you have a positive intention in mind, to serve the community and whatnot, and even if you do the smallest thing in regards to that, a lot of good is definitely going to come out of it, for sure.
Absolutely. As you can hear Salman saying, it's an international collective effort that needs to continue to happen so that we can free the people who are being oppressed.
Absolutely.
That's what you're saying. Everybody, you're listening to WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM. We've got Salman Zuberi on here. We're going to take a small break, listen to a song. I'm going to tell you a bit of a PSA, and then we'll be back again.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So again, thank you for listening to WZRD 88.3 FM. We're now returning to our interview with Salman. All right, Salman. Like we were talking up top and right before this, you were kind of speaking to the need to, one, coalesce around an idea, and to maybe maybe put these words in your mouth, build a revolution against the dominant forces that exist,
Absolutely.
right? Like narratives and things like that. Through your documentation, through all the work, through organizing in general, what do you envision as a society that could work better?
So basically, a society that could work better is a society that is for all. That everybody who, regardless of their beliefs, their backgrounds, their ethnic origins, could really come together and, fully have access to every opportunity and basically uphold and speak about any injustices that are going on in the world without fear of retribution, without fear of being shut down, and without fear of having their degrees being taken away. When we talk about a community and we talk about your own individual self and whatnot, a lot goes into play where you have efforts on the individual end as well for your life, but you have efforts on the community end as well, and that has definitely a lot of people that could take advantage of that. When you're making efforts in the community, your efforts could lead to hundreds of people maximizing, a different sort of ventures in their lives, and when you show a person, when you help a person and whatnot, you can help them almost for a lifetime sometimes, if you're really earnestly helping them and having them, venture into something that is beneficial for them and whatnot. So I see a society where people help each other grow and not shut each other down just because of their beliefs. Just because someone looks different doesn't mean that, their opinions does not hold any weight or does not hold any substance, even on the conservative end, like I think those people are like human beings that, have different opinions. But if we just come together and give a chance for the other person to like listen and actually understand them fully, maybe a lot of people will just appeal to each other's humanity and actually have like a conversation of substance. We're always so fixated at conflict that we don't look at the community aspect. We don't look at how we can sort of kind of put all of our differences to the side for a little bit and actually kind of see where our common ground is and build up from that, and if we don't hold any common ground, let's talk about it, right? Like, let's have a conversation. So I see and envision a society where everything is focused on the betterment. The thing is, there's always going to be evil forces, the evil forces that are always going to exist in some way or form. But a future society where communities have the weight and the substance to push together and actually make a difference, that is where the real change will occur, And right now, as we speak, there's so many puppets in the US government, being told what to do. There's so many like lobby groups and whatnot, so many like political action committees and whatnot, whatever efforts we make, sometimes we feel that they might be going in vain because these people in the Congress, they never listen to us. We have to do these disruptions whenever they're having these conferences or these meetings and stuff like that. You'll see like a person like raising their voices for Palestine, raising their voices for the migrants and whatnot, disrupting these meetings and stuff like that. But it's not really like a disruption. You're actually bringing their awareness to something that should be like discussed and something that is a bigger priority at that time, and I see a future society where these disruptions or these, interactions do not even need to happen because, these politicians are actually for the people. They're actually listening to those people and stuff like that, And we have these beautiful, aldermen that have these beautiful sort of understanding of the community and stuff like that. They come to the protests and stuff too, If these politicians are not partaking in these efforts with the community, then they're not for the community, Like you can easily tell if someone's a puppet or not, if they're going to be coming in, if they're going to be listening to the people and actually spending time with the common people, not the lobbyists, not the people who own these PAC communities and stuff like that, but actually with the people, with the people that are, working class people, the people that are like, migrants and stuff like that, because these people are contributing to society and to our communities more than you think, So I envision a future society that is more community based and less focused on their own individual selves and, how to basically grow their capitalist ventures to the maximal levels.
Absolutely. You're speaking about the importance of community versus the individual, which has been kind of like the neoliberal progress of American meritocracy, right? Where you can do enough on your own that you can escape the issues that face all working people and then you can be good, right? But even if say you're able to like build a company and sell it off and become a billionaire or whatever, that's not going to provide happiness and it's certainly not going to do anything for community. But it's also a huge undertaking, right? To like have to fight these forces. It's a difficult battle. It'll take a long time. It's been taking a long time. Can you speak to the importance of hope in all of this?
Absolutely. Hope, I think, is a huge thing that, stays centered within my own self and stays centered within a lot of the Palestinian community. And, quite frankly, I belong to I'm a Muslim American. I belong to, the religion of Islam, and a lot of my Palestinian brethren are also Muslims and stuff like that. There's a lot of Palestinian Christians as well, and a lot of different people in the Palestinian community that belong to different religious backgrounds as well. But more so, kind of relating to my own background and my own upbringing as a Muslim, hope is a huge thing in our hearts and in our lives where, we can never just be like hopeless, right? Because at the end of the day, we believe that God is always going to figure out a way for us, and God is always going to sort of have this thing, and even if there's a situation that we're going through that where we might feel hopeless, that in itself is a test that is just there for us, and that is like an obstacle there for us in our life, just like many other tests, and we just have to go through it, just be patient, and we're eventually gonna get over it and learn lessons that is gonna make sense to the overall reality, like why this test occurred in the first place, or why this hopeless situation occurred in the first place. And hope just becomes ingrained into us, at a very young age, when we learn about, all this Islamic literature, all these philosophies that we have, within, our religion and whatnot, and on a community level and on a self level, it really becomes like ingrained in your life. And that's what, that's where the substance of hope comes into my life through my religion and whatnot. And there's a huge aspect of that built into the community as well, and that's why a lot of our Palestinian Muslim brethren are out there always, never losing hope. You can see all these people, like they have had all these injustices being propagated against them, since like years and years now, but what has kept them going? The situation of hope, this belief in God, and this belief that, God is going to take them out of this situation one way or the other. And even if at the end of the day, their life, it has to be sacrificed for it and whatnot, and, they end up losing their life, at least the community effort is there. At least it won't disrupt the hope of the overall community, because the system of hope is what is keeping them alive. When there's no food to eat, when there's people living in tents that are being submerged in rainwater, or being submerged in, tear gas and all these different chemicals that Israel has been, sort of sending out there and whatnot, breaking these Geneva Conventions, breaking these other UN conventions, which, kind of go against like chemical weapons and whatnot, so much stuff these Palestinian people have faced in their homes. And, like people have, you've seen these videos obviously on social media where people have their skulls being like, torn apart and whatnot, people with all these chemical burns and stuff like that. But what it is at the end that is keeping them going is that system of hope, is their belief in tawakkul. Tawakkul is basically this concept, in Islam that, you have unconditional faith on God, and God eventually figures a way out for you and stuff like that. And we've seen it within so many instances of our life, that at the end of the day, even if we become hopeless, we know that we share into the system of hope and share into this religious system, which will eventually, figure our lives out. So that is the whole gist of it.
Absolutely. That's a beautiful concept. Tawakkul? Is that it? Yeah.
Tawakkul.
That is fascinating to think about. And it is important, I feel like, oftentimes in America, people will, especially because of the kind of religion that exists in America, right? This kind of like fundamentalist Christianity that is used ultimately to propagate hate, right? Like that's what kind of like Christianity ends up doing. And over time, like it's been a key component of imperialism and colonialism and stuff like that. I feel like a lot of people pull away from faith and pull away from this idea of like believing in something higher, and not to either ostracize your belief or my belief or anybody else's belief, but if you don't necessarily believe in a God, you do believe in a higher consciousness, right? Something that brings us all together for some reason, right? And that is important to find within yourself, regardless of your belief system or not. There is something bigger than just our individual, right? Because ultimately, hope can be lost very quickly if you're just thinking about yourself. But if you see yourself in the context of a society and a world that is experiencing these difficulties, then you can kind of see a bigger truth,
Absolutely. That is a really beautiful point, because even if you, do not have any religion, at the end of the day, you have a consciousness that is above your own consciousness. Then that is a shared consciousness, with the community, with the people, where other people also partake into it and stuff like that. And therefore, those systems of hope and stuff like that, even if systems of these different things which kind of relate to positivity and sort of betterment and whatnot, hope being one of those elements, even if they don't exist within your personal self, sometimes you can find hope in the community. Even if you don't find hope in yourself because of either or situations that you might be facing, you can find hope in the community, which can even like help you finding yourself at the end. So it's a really interconnected system, and we can really understand the science behind it when we sort of understand the science between how psychology and sociology works and stuff like that. And I've had the opportunity and the honor of kind of partaking into these beautiful studies, and even just normal psychology or sociology classes at UIC and whatnot. And the way they sort of bring your heart to a sort of a certain piece, when you learn the science behind it, because there's always certain like systems behind like even the community efforts we have, and even the individual efforts we have, how our brain is operating when all these things are going on. What are we thinking? What kind of maybe neurons and stuff are firing, not to be too nerdy, but sometimes the scientific stuff behind a lot of these elements helps us to understand how it might be happening, and how these things occur and work, and how we can find a shared understanding that helps us grow together.
Absolutely. You speak to an interesting complexity in being human with consciousness, right?
Absolutely.
And I'm just going to plug because I have to. You're listening to WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM. We're here with Salman Zubari, still continuing this wonderful conversation. But as you say, there's this complexity, right? There is, and it's something that I personally am fascinated with, and I would love to hear your kind of like, it's a broad, strange idea, but there's the scientific component, right? Where it is like you're saying, neurons firing in our brain that are creating thoughts, and then our thoughts come out as like words and interaction and communication, and then that build society, right? You can't build society without a communal effort, you
Absolutely.
know? But then also on that same pathway, like since we have consciousness, we have the ability to question, like, why does existence occur and things like that. And I don't know, how do you kind of like see all of that at the same time, right? Like, how do you handle the complexity of like the minute individual and the communal, and like, what do you make of all of that?
Absolutely. So I think it really depends on how the person's overall understanding is of all these things. Personally, being born as like a Muslim and stuff like that, how I dealt with it is like, we have these systems of, the self, the own person and stuff like that, and how, the community, because we have the prayers that we do on our own, right? We have like, you can pray at home and stuff like that, but then you also go to a mosque for these 5 daily prayers, and that has a different reward on its own and stuff like that. So you have all these things built into a system with literature around it, with philosophy around it and stuff like that. And all just makes sense, the way it's interconnected and whatnot. So if a person, even if they do not believe in religion and stuff like that, you can find this interconnected system where one pattern is making sense to the other pattern, and these scientific things are coming in together with the current efforts that are maybe going on within your society. You can go to maybe your local a pet shelter or animal shelter, or you can go to your local community center for whatever effort you're trying to basically hold within a community and whatnot, and you can find purpose in it. You can find substance in it, either through that academic / scientific context, or either through your personal context, where due to your upbringing or due to your family, you might be interested in certain things and whatnot. So it all makes sense in the end. It's just all about awareness at the end of the day. Like, are you ready to open up your awareness or not? Like, are you ready to heighten certain senses, and are you ready for certain conversations that might be out of your comfort zone? Growth definitely exists outside of the comfort zone. So at the end of the day, you just have to open up yourself to conversations that you might be uncomfortable with. You have to open yourselves up with like people that you might be uncomfortable with. Maybe you've seen certain people and certain stereotypes, and you've had this media narrative in your head that these people, they exist in certain fashions or certain ways, and you have this bias in your head. But until and unless you open yourself up, you let your awareness be heightened and actually have that conversation or that interaction, you're never going to be able to understand the interconnectedness of community and the individual and all the higher things that lie above that. It's just all about awareness. You have to open yourself up.
Absolutely. And you speak to an interesting thing that I'd forgotten that I wanted to get to, and now you've reminded me back into it. But there is this level of effort, right, that is required to be a person, to exist, to deal with the personal traumas that we feel, the collective traumas that we see and experience, and to reason with that. And then even further, there's an effort that needs to go in to become part of a community and to try to change things. And I feel like a lot of American society, to no fault of their own, have become stagnant or immobile or paralyzed for some reason. Speak to like the fruitfulness of engaging in this effort to become a better individual and a better member of a community. What is that effort like in your eyes?
Absolutely. So before I sort of hone on into the fruitfulness of this effort and sort of engaging your awareness into different forms and whatnot, let me actually recognize the problem here, right? The problem is we're into sometimes this idea or this form of mental paralysis that occurs. Sometimes obviously there's so many perks to TikTok and these social media platforms where you can express yourself and whatnot, but the way these engineers have structured the algorithm is kind of secretly preying on your mind as well. The way neuroplasticity works and the way we learn new information, if every second, every single minute you're just scrolling and you're just doom scrolling, that's where this concept comes from. Your mind cannot register all this information all at once. Your mind cannot be aware of all these things that are existing in the world, or like these things that might be in different contexts, like academics or whatever you're interested in, whatever your feed looks like, right? Your mind is just, you can only sit with an idea and register it and fully come to terms with it, and then see how you can apply it to your life if you reflect on it, right? You cannot be aware without reflecting on what you have learned and what your interaction was like that day, or whatever else happened in regards to that. But you can really understand and come to terms with it when you have an idea that you're going to put an effort reflecting on these things that you learn, and not just keep scrolling, like once you have a piece of information, maybe start journaling, maybe write that down and whatnot, maybe like fully let that idea sit with you for a little bit, before you go on to the next idea, just to make sense of that idea that, neuroplasticity is happening in your brain, you're learning new information, and, you're opening yourself up to it. So that's that one fruitful benefit, that you could get, is like you can then know how to apply these ideas in your life, whatever you're learning. It may be like some form of knowledge, or maybe it's something that is pulling your awareness towards something important that's going on in the world. How can you cooperate on how can you partake in that? Unless and until you let it sit with you, you're not going to be able to kind of appreciate the fruits of that idea that are going to be kind of propagated from that information or that knowledge and whatnot, and other fruits do exist from this, heightened awareness, where you can but the thing is, the awareness, it's not just, you just don't need a heightened form of awareness all on its own. You need reflection for sure. And when you have those things together, you can reap other fruits, like, basically if something did not make sense to you before, now it can make sense to you, and now you can open your mind up to new communities, new ideas, new visions for your future and whatnot. And that is, even though there's so many problems with doom scrolling and whatnot, still with these algorithms and with this social media, kind of this technological sort of a movement that has occurred in the last few years and whatnot, you have your brain just opening up to so many ideas that you might have never known before. There's so many people that have opened up their ideas to even like Palestinian culture, like the art of tatreez, which is like a certain form of embroidery and stuff like that, and people did not know about that, and they maybe saw it on the street, did not know how it worked and stuff like that. But now when people are making videos on the process and stuff like that, like it's a creator economy, so like that can go back to reaping the fruits of maybe expressing yourself, and then having that awareness of like other people expressing themselves as well. And then within yourself, you're learning as well about your own self, and then within the community effort, within like seeing other people's videos and stuff like that, you're learning about how they express themselves, and reflect on that. And maybe if you're interested in that, you can sort of partake in those things more as well. So those are a lot of the fruits that can come from that idea.
Absolutely. I like the idea of introspection you touched on, like the willingness to try to rein in the attention span deficit that we have, right? Because that does like kind of destroy our ability to form these more complex thoughts that we need in order to counter the things that exist in the world, right? Like merely scrolling and seeing bad news will only give you so much. It's wrestling with why that upsets you or why that is occurring, what your place is in all of the global trouble that goes on, and then try to turn that into, like we've been talking about, hope or action or involvement in community and things like that is so deeply important. And you've spoken on it beautifully. I don't need to like repeat anything that you've said. But with the last few minutes here that we have, tell me, what are your like plans for the future? You know, what are your plans as an artist to keep benefiting from the work you do as well as contributing to your community? What are your plans?
Absolutely. So currently I do not have like a monetizable structure with like my art and stuff like that where I can really benefit from displaying it, you know, apart from like the wedding stuff where you can obviously, like, you know, when you post wedding work and stuff like that, people hire you for that same amount of work, same form of work. But as an artist, I see myself, the thing is, I don't want to grow by myself. I want to grow with the community, because I feel like there's 7 billion people out there, you know, that are doing the same thing and are just fixated on themselves. They'll work on themselves, maybe like learn a new skill, you know, partake in certain things that they're interested in, you know, and at the end of the day, they're going to die. What are you like taking, you know, from the world? What are you like leaving in the world, basically, when you're dying and stuff like that? We have this short lifespan, and I want to maximize it as much as possible. And I feel like I can do that with the help of community and with, like, you know, sort of opening myself up to other people's visions and how I can benefit them from the skill set that I may have and whatnot, you know. And living in this society, man, is such a especially American society, sometimes it becomes such a burden, because, you know, it has you at the end of the day, you know, kind of fixate on capitalism. Even if you want to run away so much from it, you know, it's gonna fixate you. Okay, like, you know, obviously you have to pay rent and, you know, figure out food and stuff like that, but how you can make more money and stuff like that. But always you got to remember that your monetizable structure, the way you're trying to make money, should not come at the detriment of someone else. You know, if someone's struggling because you are trying to make more money, then that's gonna come back for you. You know, like, you're gonna face that tribulation in your life, maybe in some way or form or the other, if you're trying to, you know, bring someone else down. So I think I want to find a way where I can still work on myself and, you know, grow in my artistic pursuits, maybe in my technical pursuits as well, while also bringing together community. One of the reasons why, you know, I was sort of really I had a difficult experience with this contract as well, with my work contract that I left, was because there was no community. They were trying to take advantage of me and build a software architecture, a cloud architecture with no team, you know, because obviously hiring a team and hiring more people is gonna, you know, have them increase their budget and whatnot, you know. They want me to build this architecture all by myself from start to finish in 3 months, and just leave as if that architecture that I built has no, you know, sort of connection to me, you know, has no connection to me, and I just did that for them, you know. So there are people that are trying to manipulate you and take advantage of you. You know, you always have to think about how you can grow yourself, and, you know, how maybe if it's a small business, you know, that is benefiting the community and stuff like that, and it's okay if it's not earning you billions of dollars and stuff like that, you know. Where are you gonna take that money when you die? Everyone has to face death one day, and, you know, even Elon Musk, Donald Trump, they're gonna die one day. They're not gonna take any of this, you know, with themselves when they die. It's all gonna be gone, you know. Like, maybe their future generations will partake in it, but they cannot benefit from it anymore. So for that reason, I think we have to keep, you know, pushing for something that will help the community and will stay in this world after you go. And whether it's building community centers, whether it's, like, you know, helping each other grow, helping each other's businesses grow. And sometimes if you don't get any benefit from it, that's okay, you know, you do it for the good of your heart. So I've always, you know, been trying to commit myself into ventures. I don't get any money from covering these protests or any sponsorships and stuff like that. You know, I do it from the good of my heart, and I do it for, you know, creating awareness for a larger issue where I know that I'm doing something bigger than myself. It doesn't have to look like a paycheck, you know, benefit for me. You know, it can just look like a community, and the community support that I get, the community interaction that I get, matters matters more to me more than like $1 billion. If I could have the choice between like choosing between like $1 billion and that community support, people laughing, people enjoying, people like kind of coming together within this artistic form, I would choose that any day. Because I have a short life here in this world. I'm not here to make billions of dollars, but I'm here to make community, and that is what my life is about.
I don't think there's any better place to end, man. Like, that was
Absolutely
beautifully said. Again, Salman Zubari, wonderful photographer. Tell us where we can find you online and support you.
You can find me on at MSZUBAIRY on Instagram, at MSZubairy on Instagram. I do wedding photography. All my visitor listeners and stuff like that, I got y'all on discount. Let me know. And I do podcasts on the SZ show. You can find it on Spotify. You can find it on Apple Podcasts and the RSS feed as well. I try to do like a lot of ventures within community and stuff like that. I kind of platform all them on my Instagram and whatnot. Same handle on TikTok as well, at MSZUBAIRY. I'm looking forward to connecting with your culture. I'm always looking to come into communities and stuff like that and help them in ways that I can. There's so many different efforts taking place in Chicagoland and stuff like that, and if I can benefit them, let me know. I would love to become a part of your community and sort of help myself grow and help you guys grow as well. And let's hope for a better future. Let's hope for a world that has little to no discrimination, where we can actually envision a better future for everybody else and ourselves, and a future where our existence does not have to be validated, or does not have to be capitalized in order to exist in the first place. But that is what I hold as my mission, and you can find me on all those places. And thank you so much for listening to me and for spending time with us today and whatnot. And I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day.
Absolutely. That is Salman Zubari at MSZUBAIRY, Instagram, TikTok, anywhere. Follow him, look at his photos. Hire him for a wedding if you need to.
Absolutely. And I really want to appreciate this space, first of all. Last of all, the Wizard space and, the way it's structured and stuff like that. And you guys have artists come on here. You have people like me come on here and just, voice their, whatever is going on in the world and whatever they stand for and whatnot. It's such a beautiful space. And this is the first time I've been in any IU, but I can see it for the amazing space it is and the amazing community that, you guys are holding out here and whatnot. And, I might have to go back to school and come back here. I don't know.
Yeah, dude, come get your master's at NEIU. Come on, dude.
Absolutely. So I appreciate you guys for giving me this platform as well.
Of course, we appreciate you, and we did not pay Salman for that plug. So
yeah, absolutely.
Cool. All right, Salman Zubari.
For sure.
Listening to WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM.